Hey, what's going on, guys? Thought I'd do another quick little vid. This one is just talking about parts manufacturers that I like, basic kind of replacement parts. What brands to look out for, which ones to avoid for the Tokyo Marui MWS. There's, one of the great things about this platform is there's tons of aftermarket support, and I'd say for the most part, they all kind of work. These are just my personal preferences. Not to say that these are the only ones you need to get, but these are what I have experience with and what works for me and what I just tend to stick with. And I'm just talking about internal parts here, like the most common things that you might need to replace. I'm not talking about every little piece. Some guys go crazy, and you could do a fully custom built MWS from the ground up if you wanted, but I don't really think it's necessary. The stock parts work great. This is mainly like if you just need a replacement, or you're doing a build and you need a couple little parts. These are the main ones that you'll probably be looking at. So I'd say one of the most common parts you probably always want to have in your toolkit is nozzles. I really like the Guns Modify nozzles. I also really like the stock Tokyo Marui nozzles. If you can get those, they are kind of hard to find. The only place I really know that sells them is Impulse 101 in Japan, and they kind of restock periodically. So usually these Guns Modify ones are real easy to get. I usually grab them off Red Wolf. The only thing I will say is they have a bit of a proprietary design on the fake locking lug here. So, but it comes with it in the kit, so it's non-issue to me. But yeah, I guess you can't swap this with this, put this on a stock nozzle, and vice versa. You can't take a stock nozzle's locking lug and put it on the Guns Modify one. But that's the only thing to note of that. For buckings, it's probably the other most common part that's going to wear out. I really like these modified tan buckings. Some people kind of talk bad on them because they say they get chewed up easily, and which is kind of true in a way. So they physically do kind of get some chewed up a bit here on the end there, kind of where the nozzle keeps making contact with it. But for me, what I found is in actuality, it doesn't really matter, because sure, you might start seeing some physical damage, but they still work. And as long as it works, then I don't consider it really damaged, They last just as long as any other bucking I've tried. And they're just, I don't know, for me, they fit my hop-up chamber, my barrel really nicely. So I just stuck with them, and they're really accurate and everything. They have kind of a softer kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but it's a softer kind of rubber. It just feels different than your typical bucking, and I think that's why they get a little bit chewed up quicker, but they still last thousands and thousands of rounds, so not really an issue to me. And I think that's just like a common complaint that people have, and most people that say that haven't ever even tried them. And I also really like these new Maple Leaf silicone buckings. Yeah, they work really good year round, but especially for winter, I found with winter setups, kind of the last piece of the puzzle was the bucking. Even if you had everything else set up good for winter, if it was just really cold, eventually your bucking would just get frozen basically from all the cold gas, and then it would swell, and then the gun would basically stop shooting straight or far. And these silicone buckings just hold up a lot better to the cold. They don't freeze over, and they don't turn hard and swell. So they're really nice. But yeah, they're good year round, like I said. I also like stock buckings. You can get those from Impulse. Those work great. There's a million buckings out there. You can just try what you want. A lot of people like other Maple Leaf ones, the old MR hops and different ones, like Autobots and all those. For me, they probably work fine. I just don't use them. I don't like them because when I install them here, like with the barrel and the hop-up chamber, they're too big, and the chamber kind of swells out and doesn't like seal up just nicely like this one. I mean, you see there's a little bit there, but that's not really an issue, because when you put it in the barrel, it holds it all together in place. But I just like these ones seem to fit better. And again, that depends on what barrel you're using and what hop-up chamber. This is a Lilacs hop-up chamber. Going into hop-up chambers, honestly, I just like the stock ones. I usually use the stock ones with the Laylax hop arm. This piece here, you can just buy that, and that replaces the hop-up nub and the stock hop arm, and it gives you a lot more range of adjustability. But yeah, I've used these Laylax chambers too. Sometimes, yeah, that might be another another video, but sometimes I have an issue where I think I've talked about other videos where when you're torquing down your barrel, they're a little looser in the chamber, so they can get binded up in the channel, and then maybe your arm is having problems. I just did a video that kind of showed that. I can't remember which one. But anyways, hop-up chambers, I just like the stock ones. I've also used Guns Modify. Guns Modify is a good brand. I think they usually work for all the parts. Barrels, stock barrel is great. I honestly don't really see a whole need to change it, but I've been slowly kind of upgrading my barrels for the heck of it, and I really like these PDI 6.01. These are like 10-inch barrels, 250 millimeter. They're made for the MWS, and they're really nice barrels. I've also used Prometheus 601 for the longer, like 14.5 barrel in my longer gun, and that thing is a pack driver. But the stock barrels are honestly super accurate and work really good too. So I typically would say just stay away from these guys, Angry Gun, for internal parts anyways. Their QC sucks. Like gosh, what is it? Well, their nozzle is horrible. The MPA nozzle, just definitely don't ever buy that. But this is actually a hop-up adjuster set. So this is kind of the other part that sits in your upper, and it interacts with the hop chamber here. This is like the dial adjuster, where you actually click to make your hop adjustments. I usually get Guns Modify or stock if you can find it. GMP again is also a good brand, but I've actually had luck with this. This was all I could find, and I needed one, and I've used one before and didn't have a problem with that. So hopefully that one's good too. That's really it, honestly. Like, nozzles and buckings are your main thing. It can go into like buffers. I do like running aftermarket one-piece buffers. This is a G&P V1. They also have like a V2 now. But yeah, these work good. You can pop this pin out. You can add, different weights depending on what setup you want for more recoil. Just be careful if you buy the V1s, I believe fit all buffer tubes like stock and aftermarket. The V2s, they do have one that's specific to your stock buffer tube or aftermarket tubes. And typically I would say just get the one that's made for the stock tube, because that'll fit both. You can use, I don't have it here, but it has a ring around it, I think, and that's how you can tell if it has a ring. It's for like the GMP buffer tubes only, or other aftermarkets, versus if it doesn't have that ring, it'll fit every tube. Yeah, buffer tubes, I do like one-piece buffer tubes, not necessary again. And yeah, and buffers, not really necessary. It's more of a reliability upgrade. It's just nice to have a solid one-piece aluminum versus the stock one, which is plastic and spring-loaded. So it can break eventually. Like I broke mine lasted thousands of rounds, my first one, but it eventually exploded on a hot summer day running propane. So this thing will never break, right? Buffer tubes, again, it's just kind of a nice upgrade, not necessary at all. I'm kind of just, now we're getting into like the weeds, but I've used Guns Modify buffer tubes. They do seem to take, they don't come with they'll come with the the castle nut here, but they don't come with the body retainer and the receiver end plate. They don't come with these, and they don't really work with the stock one, so I end up having to Dremel out the stock one just to fit it over the threads. That's the only issue with the Guns Modified tubes, but otherwise they work. But let's see what else real quick. I said barrels, outer barrels, if you want to get into that. Z Parts makes really nice stuff in general, so they're always a good brand to look for. This is a steel Mark 18 outer barrel I'm going to install. They're pretty chunky, they're pretty heavy, so if you want, like realism, Moss realism in your weight, that's cool. They also make aluminum lightweight outer barrels too, but again, the stock barrel works pretty good. One good reason to upgrade your to change your outer barrel is if you're gonna start using aftermarket rails. They all the aftermarket barrels have a thicker base, and it just works better with aftermarket rails, and particularly the barrel nuts. But if you're using like this is still using a stock outer barrel with a Mad Bull Mark 18 rail, and I haven't had a problem. They do sell spacers that usually people recommend you use if you're sticking with a stock barrel and using a aftermarket rail. But I was able to get away with it just using barrel shims. These are always good to have, and these don't really matter on the brand, honestly. They're all just barrel shims. But oh, going back to buffers real quick, I've also started experimenting with real steel buffers just because they're super cheap. I mean, like 12, 15 bucks here in the States. And they are one piece, aluminum. You know, I mean, honestly, you can't really beat it for the price. And they'll add a nice bit of recoil because they are heavier. These like 3 ounces for a standard carbon buffer. You can get H1, H2, H3 are heavier, but then the price goes up accordingly. I think an H3 buffer is like 40 bucks because it has the titanium weights inside. And yeah, that's the heaviest setup is titanium weights versus whatever these are, steel or aluminum in there. But honestly, even just this, you know, cheap carbon buffers, it'll change your recoil performance a lot and make it feel a lot nicer. So I think that's before I am still testing these real steel buffers. I don't foresee any problems arising, but some people were saying, oh well, you might have an issue because real steel buffers are flat faced and most Tokyo Marui buffers have this little kind of concave at the end, which I guess kind of lines up with the open-ended back of the bolt and maybe helps keep it kind of centered as it's going through the buffer tube. But I don't know. I haven't seen any like weird damage. I haven't used it a whole lot yet. I want to do some more testing, but I haven't seen any problems with it, and I don't really foresee any problems. And it's a cheap, nice part you can source sometimes easier than MWS specific parts, and it'll add a nice bit of recoil. So yeah, I think that's mainly it. But I guess takeaway is I like Guns Modify. I buy a lot of their crap, and GMP is always good. Typically want to stay away from Angry Gun. That's the big takeaway. And yeah, there's plenty of other parts that work. Like I said, like T8 I know is a popular one. I think their parts work pretty well overall. One thing is some of their stuff's proprietary, which I don't like because I have a lot of different parts from different guns. I want to be able to swap them if I need to. Most of their stuff's not, but I know their new full steel trigger box and their steel bolt, it goes together as a kit, and it can only work with their own bolt and their own trigger box. So I don't really like that. I'd rather have a trigger box that can work with any bolt. But yeah, other than that, if you have any questions, let me know on specific parts. I think that this is just some people ask me, oh, should I get this part, this brand, that brand? So I thought I'd try to make a video to kind of tell you guys what I use for the most part. As usual, this ran longer than I expected, so sorry about that, but hope it helps you guys. All right, take it easy.